This is from Calvin in Houston, Texas. And Calvin is wondering, is there something about Islam that makes it in particular in opposition to what he says reason and science? Maybe you disagree with this video, but I want to hear Calvin's take on it. Calvin, you're live on Truth Wanted.
Yes, sir. Here I am.
Hey.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just reintroducing the concept. Again, you have some thoughts about Islam, about how it's in opposition to reason and science, and I want to hear you make your case for this.
Yeah, well, before I ask that question, I had another quick question. I heard, sorry if I mispronounced it. Is it Veedu or Veedu?
It is Veedu.
Veedu. All right. I heard him use the term "we" when he was talking about Muslims, even though he's an ex-Muslim, and I just want to know his thoughts on what it is to culturally identify as a Muslim, even though he is not a subscriber to the doctrine of Islam.
Oh, great question.
Is that harmful? Is that harmful to the? Is that harmful to us secularists or atheists that are trying to? Well, our goal is obvious, but I just want to know if it's hurtful or not.
Sorry, is it harmful to secularists in what sense?
Like, to me, to have any religious title or to subscribe to any religious doctrine.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and even though you may not be a subscriber to that doctrine, adhering to the title Muslim or Christian or Scientologist or whatever you want to go with puts you in that group when you need not be in that group. Basically.
Yeah. So I mean, theologically speaking, I'm most certainly not in that group. Culturally, you could say, you know, I was born in Pakistan. I've got a lot of family members in Pakistan. I want countries like Pakistan to improve. So when I say we, I meant like I want Muslim countries to improve. So I will say we. But when I'm talking about theology, it's me. Because I don't agree with them. But that's a very good point. And I suppose it's an old habit, because a lot of the beliefs that I have now, especially when it comes to politically or socially, when it comes to Muslims need to improve when it comes to education, critical thinking, their political organization, I still hold those beliefs that I did as a Muslim, because I think the Muslim world is lagging a lot behind, you know, if you compare it to the West or even like Japan, South Korea. So I say we, in a sense, as a people, culturally, my family, I still obviously love my family love me. I want my family in Pakistan and that country to improve as well. I would use we in that sense, but not in the theological sense, no.
So you don't think it's synonymous with being Jewish in any way? The cultural identity is so strong that you can still fall under that category while still being atheist? Do you think it's possible to be a Muslim atheist?
I think that's a very good question, because I remember very early on in my sort of whether I should leave Islam, what should I call myself? Should I be an ex? The term ex-Muslim was like, oh, that's too strong, man. I'm an ex-alcoholic. I'm an ex whatever. You know, I'm an ex whatever. I don't like referring myself as an ex anything, to be honest with you. So X was very strong. I thought maybe agnostic Muslim, maybe a cultural Muslim, maybe an atheist Muslim. What should I refer myself to? Refer myself as? The most accurate is ex-Muslim, but many Muslims like many ex-Muslims like myself, we were thinking, why can't you just be like an atheist Muslim the same way you can be an atheist Jew? I mean, there are many secular Jews who still say, yeah, I'm Jewish. I don't believe in God, but I go to a bar mitzvah or I go to whatever festival and I participate in, you know, eating and drinking, whatever it is. I do the same. I don't believe in God or Islam, but I still go to Eid prayer with my father because it makes my mum happy. I still celebrate Eid. Actually, last week I even prayed Friday prayer just to make my mom and grandma happy. They were so happy when I did it. I was like, okay, whatever. Obviously, I don't believe in it. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah. But if it makes them happy, so what, man? I mean, it's not a big thing for me. So it's a very new area. It's a very new development. It will take some time for Muslims to get to the point where they can say, you know what, I'm an atheist Muslim. I'm born a Muslim, but I don't really care. I still participate in the festivals, but theologically I'm secular or I'm just indifferent. So it will take some time for us to get there. But it's a very good question, a question which a lot of Muslims wrestle with cultural Muslim, ex-Muslim, agnostic Muslim, what? So,
now, Veedu, that's really interesting you say that, because when I was kind of deconverting myself and I was going through that process, I actually really liked the term ex-Christian. And I think the reason why I liked it is because just saying that I'm an atheist or an atheist agnostic or even a humanist, you know, most people don't know. First of all, most people don't know what humanist is. But like just saying I'm an atheist or agnostic atheist, for example, that doesn't tell people about my history. That doesn't really tell people about my experiences and stuff. And saying that I'm an ex-Christian kind of says, oh, yes, I was totally, completely a part of Christian culture, very happily so. But I have since kind of transitioned and left that experience. And I think that kind of imparts a better knowledge to people instead of just saying, you know, because if you say atheist, that doesn't tell you if I was always an atheist. That doesn't tell you my experiences with the religion, therefore. But saying ex-Christian kind of helps me enunciate on that a little more. So that's interesting that you have a different take on that.
Yeah, but you know what? I've actually adopted ex-Muslim because it annoys Muslims. Like you would, because they're like, hang on, you were born Muslim and you left? Like, what's wrong with you? So at first I was like, oh, ex-Muslim sounds like I said, ex-alcoholic, ex-drug user, ex-vegan, whatever. I'm joking. But I thought I'll throw that in there.
There you go.
But I thought I didn't like it, but now I realize as a political term, it's very useful because there are many ex-Muslims around the world that are actually struggling, that can't be open about their faith. If I can be open about my lack of faith, I am going to use the term ex-Muslim. I even say to Muslims, a lot of Muslims say, why do you say ex-Muslim? Why don't you just say atheist? And it annoys them because they don't like the fact that I'm ex. So I say to them, if there were no apostasy laws in the world, if a Muslim could leave Islam with the same ease with which they can join it, I will get rid of the term ex-Muslim. I will get rid of it the moment that's possible.
Wow. And, you know, I have the problem, too, also of people saying, oh, I was never a Christian in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you go, like, some theological beliefs are dependent on that fact that I was never a Christian, especially if you're like Calvinist and some of these other specific denominations. So, yeah, I think it annoys people, too, when you say ex-Muslim or ex-Christian in particular, because the rejection of something is something kind of people don't like.
It questions their faith, you know. It's like, oh, this guy left Islam. Maybe I could leave Islam. You know?
I'm perfectly fine if somebody says they're like an ex-atheist and they're a Christian. There's a lot of people that question that say, oh, you were never really an atheist. Like I am less hesitant to question people on that because I don't want to judge people's experiences. I never lived their lives, but at the same time, it is kind of different. Also, like you don't hear, I don't know, maybe this isn't true. I feel like there's more ex-Christians than there are ex-atheists, like in the United States in particular. I don't know if that's true or not, or even worldwide. I have no idea.
That's a good question. I would love to know the answer to that. Yeah.
But hopefully that kind of gives you some insight here, Calvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. My second question is I don't know much about Islam except probably a little more than the average population. That's not much at all. But it's a two-part question. I just wanted to hear his thoughts on if he thinks Islam has unique mechanisms within it that make it harder to, or make it easier to oppose reason and scientific values in a unique sense. And if yes, is Islam unique in a dangerous way? To explain more, like, it doesn't have separation of church and state. It doesn't have certain mechanisms that allow it to peacefully coexist with other religions. It doesn't have mechanisms that allow it to move more or less and less conservative. It doesn't have such mechanisms, and I just want to know if you think that's dangerous or just what are his thoughts on that?
So that's a very, very interesting question. Now, the first part of it, is it more against science and reason? Well, I wouldn't say it's any more than Christianity or Judaism. It's the same Abrahamic faith. It's, you know, the same narrative, one God, heaven and hell, all that kind of stuff. It's the same in that regard. Now, when you're talking about politically, this is a very, very big question. I would say, if you were to compare Christian Europe, you know, medieval time, Christendom, that's kind of where we are right now when it comes to Islam. Islam hasn't really got out of that phase or got come out of the other side of that journey, if you want to put it that way. A lot of Muslims around the world don't really care about that kind of stuff. They either live in secular countries, or even the Muslim countries they live in are somewhat secular. Yes, they have some Islamic law, whatever it is, but for the most part, they're like any other government. Yes, there's corruption and whatnot, but they don't really care. Now, as a this is what I want you to understand. Islam is not simply a religion, like I pray, I fast, I go on pilgrimage. Islam claims to be a whole political system. So Islam is trampling on the very political territory that a secular democracy wants to preserve. They want to preserve secular democracy. They want to preserve law and order. Islam says we have our own law and order. And if it's from God, why am I going to accept your man-made rule of law? Why would any Muslim do that, right? If they're being very strict. So yes, there is a danger in that sense that as a political movement, Islam is very dangerous, the same way Christianity was, the same way Hinduism is in India, if they're very extreme Hindus. Any religion mixed with politics is a recipe for disaster. Recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, in the Middle East, the only secular governments that have been in power have been secular dictatorships, not secular democracies. So the alternative to a secular dictatorship has been Islamist democracy, if that makes sense. Like you saw in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood, or in other countries, the Muslim parties get in and they Islamicize everything because they're like anti-West, anti, what do you want to call it, liberty or liberalism. The same way you would say sort of Islamic is a dirty word in Europe or the West. Liberal is a dirty word in the Muslim world. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but what I'm trying to say is there are certain strands of Islam, certain interpretations of Islam that are very dangerous. I would say certain strands when it comes to Salafism, Wahhabism, or any form of political Islam that wishes to establish some sort of Islamic rule, some sort of Islamic state, that I would very, very strongly oppose.
Do you think that makes it uniquely opposed to liberalism in a way that we should apply more significance into fighting the ideas of Islam?
Right now, in this day and age, yes. If we were having this conversation 500 years ago, it would be Christianity. And actually, the Muslim world wasn't as heavily religious or interested in the sort of political religiousness back then. Now it is because of a whole load of historical reasons. So right now, I would say Islam does pose a unique threat in a way that Christianity doesn't. Christianity is like, oh, pray, go to the church. Yes, Islam does all the same stuff when it comes to mosques and prayer and charity, but at the same time, they are saying, by the way, this system isn't good enough. We have another system which is called Sharia. And ideally, we would want that. Now, if you can't get it in a Muslim country, you would want to spread it as much as possible in the non-Muslim countries. And that is done by certain groups. I don't want to say every Muslim is doing this because they're not. Certain strands of Islam are definitely interested in this. Yes, 100%.
I see. And then that's all I was really curious about. But a quick question before... the end of the call. Did you move into a more moderate version of Islam before leaving, or were you never conservative to begin with, or what is the best way to? What do you think is the best way for the majority of people to leave Islam? Is it either to leave it completely, leave conservatism behind, leave the radical ideas behind, and reform? I mean, what is the best way to get Islam to a healthy place?
That's actually a very, very good question, which many Muslims or rather many ex-Muslims have been debating. Should we go for the reform route, or should we just go for straight up apostasy? Well, to answer the first question, I would consider myself never an extremist or never a conservative, really that much conservative Muslim. The reason why I left Islam was because I was trying so hard to reconcile science and religion. I was really trying my hardest because I was interested in science, and I understand that science works, right? Science works. But at the same time, God made the universe, so God and science kind of have to match. God can't create the universe and go against it in his own book, right? It's whatever. So my whole thing was I was trying to reconcile science and religion, and the more I tried, the harder I tried, the more frustrated I got, or the more more I realized, actually, you know what, this isn't working. So that's my background. I would say to the second question, which is the big question: do we go for reformation and push Muslims away from conservatism to a more liberal kind of Islam, or do we just go for straight up jump ship? I say both.
Yeah.
For those Muslims who want to remain Muslim and still believe in God, no problem. As long as we distance them from the whole Islamic State, the whole theocracy stuff, fantastic. If they want to pray, if they want to fast, if they want to go on pilgrimage and whatever it is, take part in the rituals, no problem, go for it. But for those Muslims who are inquisitive or are fed up of Islam, who do not, or rather Islam does not satisfy their intellectual or spiritual needs, I would encourage them, if they can do so, leave. Of course, it can be very tough to do so if you live in a Muslim country or live in a very strict family. But I mean, there are many options to speak online and get in touch with people who can help you. Now, I mean, to be honest with you, I think ex-Muslims are rising in the world. This is something which people cannot keep quiet any longer. In the Muslim world, we hear about many stories of Muslims leaving Islam. They either have to flee or that they are anonymous online, and they share their stories. And I think the whole Muslim dawah scene, or as they say, the sort of preaching scene, they know this now. And they are kind of like, oh, crap, we did not know this was happening. And there's a tidal wave of Muslims leaving Islam. So my job, or my message to everyone out there, Muslims, is these people that leave Islam are your family members, they're your friends, they're your mothers, your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, and maybe they might even be you. So go easy on them, be understanding, okay? When I was Muslim, I never thought I would leave Islam. It's incomprehensible, inconceivable to me that I would ever leave Islam. Why would you leave Islam, man? I was born in the right religion. So, what I'm saying is people are leaving Islam. So this is going to happen where it will reach a critical mass where the Muslims will have to reform. The remaining Muslims will have to, because they realize they're losing numbers. And when any community starts losing numbers, then you will see them kick into action, and then they will have to reform and say, okay, we'll get rid of this part, we'll get rid of that part.
Isn't there also a danger of them doubling down on already bad ideas? Because their position is that all of their ideas are universally absolutely correct in every sense.
Yep. I think there's a real
danger.
100%. There is actually, intellectually speaking and physically speaking, there's a civil war in Islam right now. They are fighting for what Islam means. Many moderate Muslims will say Islam means peace. Islam means I can be friends with a Hindu. I can be friends with a Christian. I can go to the pub. It's not a big deal. I don't have to drink. I can wear a hijab. I cannot wear a hijab. There's that kind of Muslim. And there's the Muslim, like you said, the ones that double down and be like, no, we're not going to compromise. Apostasy law, blasphemy law, these things are real and we will not budge. And actually, those moderate Muslims are like, they're actually getting shamed by the more hardline or the more conservative Muslims. And there is a real fight for the territory of what does Islam actually mean. In the next 50 years, it's going to be very interesting. I think a lot of people will leave Islam, and even the ones that do remain, they'll be confused, like, what the hell, man? I'm pretty much no different from my atheist neighbor. Why am I still praying or fasting, whatever it is? And I know this from my own family, from my own community. They're not public about it, but practically speaking, they're not Muslims. The names are Muhammad, Abdul, Ahmed, and whatever, Hassan, and this, that, and the other. And they're Muslim in appearance, but when I speak to them, they're like, whatever, I don't really care. So it'll be very interesting in the next few generations as to how Islam is going to turn out.
Incredible. Well, Calvin, thanks so much for calling. You asked some really great questions.
That was amazing.
No problem.
All right, we'll go ahead and let you go. Thanks again for calling. Man, oh man. I mean, that was beautiful, honestly. Some of the stuff you're talking about there. I mean, I feel like my role this show has just been comparing my Christian experiences to yours. And you see the same thing where there's a spectrum of beliefs across Christianity. And like I know people who grew up who believed the Earth was like 6,000 years old and whatnot. I did never hold those beliefs. And there's kind of tensions there, but also like even now, like, oh gosh, I was watching a video the other day of someone who was calling Francis Chan, who's a very famous Christian conference speaker, like an apostate, and he was like a oh, what do you call it? Kind of like a false prophet, basically. And you see this stuff in Christian communities like all the time. People calling each other out, people saying that's not the real doctrine, that's not this and that. And it's this real fight for identity that I think has kind of left people in the dark a little bit about, well, okay, if this is like the true belief and this is what is truly supposed to happen, I don't know if I hold those beliefs. I think the most common thing I see these days is I know a lot. Like growing up, it was like, oh man, like all my Christian friends have tattoos and stuff. And like some of them are like living with their fiancés or even girlfriends and stuff like that was never a thing when I was a kid. I've seen a lot of that now. Now I'm seeing a lot of apologetics towards like being gay in the Bible has always kind of been a thing. The Apostle Paul, they didn't talk about being gay like we do talk about being gay today, and like that's a whole new narrative. But we're still using like Christianity and religious structures as an authority on kind of our issues and stuff. And so it's this kind of interesting back and forth. And by the way, too, for my Christian listeners and other listeners too, the atheist community has never been on the same page on a lot of issues. Okay,
no,
like you have all kinds of people debating stuff, and I disagree with a lot of people, even here at the ACA sometimes on stuff. I mean, we talk about stuff offside the show all the time. We're still friends. We just have discussions on this stuff, and that is okay. Like it is okay to have disagreements as long as you're building towards something and you're trying to learn towards something. And I think just having more conversations is key here, trying to figure out what our goals are and what we really think is true and how we should run our society. I mean, these are really big questions, and I'm just really glad you've been here tonight to talk about some of these things. Things. Yeah.
If I just may, one thing, 2 points. You said that when you're comparing your Christian experiences to my Muslim ones, you will find that there's so many similarities. And this comes back to the first point you made. Can a non-Muslim or a outsider speak about Islam or whatever? Yes, because what you will recognize is that there's so many similarities, so many the same narrative. Oh, but is this the right type of Christianity? Is this the wrong type of Christianity? The same with Islam. What's the true Islam? What's the true Christian? All these same questions I have faced. I'm guaranteed 99% of them you've also faced as a Christian. Jesus is there instead of Muhammad? Is Allah or God or Bible or Quran? But all the same questions, all the same things that are going through your head, the ex-Muslim has faced, the Muslim has faced. So we're more same than we are different. So for anyone who says no, you can't, no, you can speak about it if you want to. You can speak about it. And the next thing is, yes, atheists disagree. What's the big deal? Excuse me, can Muslims disagree on how to interpret the Quran? And you're saying atheists can't disagree. I would see our disagreement as a strength. I don't understand. There is not one book, a book of atheism or one book of disbelief. We are allowed to disagree on anything we want, and that is the beauty of it.
Yeah.
So that is the beauty. I'm not intellectually tied.
I like that. Why? Like, it doesn't always have to be a negative. If everybody agreed on the same thing all the time, I think there's a problem there. I think that means that we're not thinking about things enough if we all agreed on it at the same time. So
when you go in history and look at countries that always agree on something, they actually end up killing a lot of people. Or they end up killing themselves. Whether it's through war or genocide or whatever it is, you need nuance, you need differences, you need always someone in that room to say, hang on, before we go and kill that tribe over there, are you sure this is really necessary? Do we have to do this kind of... You always need people to question. You always need people to be skeptic.